Ça, c'est Stonehenge, une des plus grandes structures mégalithiques d'Europe, et elle se trouve à 2h40 de Londres environ en voiture, dans le comté de Wiltshire. Et si vous en avez déjà entendu parler, c'est peut-être grâce à ça.
On parlait ce matin d'une découverte archéologique importante sur le site néolithique de Stonehenge, sur lequel plane un mystère depuis si longtemps déjà. Est-ce que cette découverte...
Ou alors ça.
To the damage at one of the world's most famous historic sites. 2 climate activists have been arrested after spraying orange powder on Stonehenge.
Ou encore
Des
ça.
milliers de personnes se sont rassemblées dès l'aube sur le site mégalithique de Stonehenge en Angleterre pour célébrer le solstice d'été, le jour le plus long de l'année, au milieu de cet ensemble de pierres érigées entre 2800 et 1100 avant Jésus-Christ.
On est tout seul sur l'incroyable site de Stonehenge en Angleterre. C'est le lever du soleil, il y a beaucoup de vent, peut-être vous l'entendez, et c'est assez fou parce qu'on va vraiment pouvoir avoir l'occasion de visiter ce site ensemble, et vraiment, c'est impressionnant.
C'est vraiment en étant tout seul sur ce site qu'on se rend compte de l'immensité des pierres, et pour mieux comprendre cet endroit, on a eu la chance d'avoir une visite guidée de la part de la conservatrice senior du site, Heather Sebir, qui a d'ailleurs fait exactement la même visite que la mienne il y a 10 ans à l'ancien président, Barack Obama.
So, welcome to Stonehenge.
Je ferai des petites pauses comme celle-ci durant ces explications pour vous mettre des croquis et des illustrations pour que vous puissiez visualiser au mieux ce site de Stonehenge.
We're actually standing in one of the entrances of the earliest part of the site. So we've got a bank here and a ditch. That was cut by people using antler picks, literally gouging out the underlying rock, which is chalk. And this is one of the first features of the site. But what I must say right away is that Stonehenge isn't just here on its own. There's lots of much earlier monuments and much later ones. The first thing they did was they enclosed a circular space, but that would have been gleaming white on the landscape because of the chalk, and monumental in its own right. And you would have been able to see it from quite a long way away. And this is one of the entrances. And associated with that bank and ditch are a series of 56 pits cut into the ground, which hold cremation burials. So Stonehenge is a place of burial at this very early stage. Because what we do know is nobody's living here. You know, when people say, what is Stonehenge? We certainly know it's not a settlement. Nobody's living here, but they are burying their dead right back from around about 3000 BC. And those pits are still visible today.
Pour mieux visualiser le site, il faut prendre de la hauteur. Au tout début de la création de ce site, il y a eu uniquement ce talus et ce fossé qui ont été creusés afin d'enfermer l'espace où allait justement être construit Stonehenge. À l'intérieur de ce cercle, il y a eu 56 fosses funéraires qui ont été creusées, toutes à peu près espacées de la même distance les unes des autres, et où ils pratiquaient la crémation de leurs morts. Et à ce moment précis où on discute avec Heather, on se trouve là sur le site.
And then we think a few hundred years later, so maybe several generations, it took before they started to bring in the stone part of the monument that is so iconic. Some people, I think, just think it's the stones, but this bank and ditch is very important because it encloses the space and associated with those burials. And from recent excavations to the northeast at a place called Durrington Walls, there was the equivalent of a Neolithic village excavated, and from that we've deduced that those were the people who probably worked to bring these huge stones in. We've got one stone here in front of us known as the heel stone. We're fairly sure it had a partner. Would have been part of people coming up through this entrance, through the bank and the ditch, and then heading for the monument itself, where the huge stones are. All of this is on a solstice alignment.
Yeah, okay, so that's the main one that is aligned with the
summer solstice. The sun comes up in the northeastern horizon and comes up the side of the Hillstone and shines right into the centre of the stone part of the monument. In the winter, we think it was more important for them to watch the sunset. They probably had people that observed the length of the day, the fact that the seasons changed. Because there's like a sort of pause over what we call the solstice, there's a few days when it's very dark, it's the shortest days of the year. But they probably had people who understood that it was going to change. It was like the turn turning of the year, and they probably knew that things would get better, the days would get longer, and their crops would grow, because the people that built all of this were farmers. They were the first agriculturalists who settled down and knew where their next meal was coming from, really, you know. Yeah. Whereas the people before them were the hunter-gatherers who were much more transient in the landscape. So we're going through one of the entrances here now. There's another single stone here called the Slaughter Stone. The iron pan in the rock makes the puddling look red. Yeah. And I think they thought it was a druid's altar or something, but we're pretty sure it was upright. So you wouldn't have seen all that puddling, and we think it had a partner as well. So you've got two stones and two stones leading up to the main event. So we'll just walk towards.
So they were symmetric, right? So there would be one here, one there, one here, another one here.
Yes, leading you up towards the stone circle.
Parlons maintenant de temporalité. Il y a eu 3 grands temps forts pour Stonehenge. Le premier a été 3200 avant Jésus-Christ, où ils ont construit le talus et le fossé duquel on vient de parler, ainsi que les 56 trous de crémation. Vous pouvez voir aussi sur cette image qu'il y a 4 pierres. Elles s'appellent les pierres de station, on y reviendra un petit peu plus tard. Environ 200 ans plus tard, le site évolue et ils installent des pierres à l'entrée du site, ainsi qu'environ 80 pierres au centre du cercle, qu'on appelle les Blue Stones ou les pierres bleues, qui peuvent peser jusqu'à 5 tonnes chacune, et qui marquent déjà l'emplacement final des fameuses grandes pierres de Stonehenge. Il faut se rendre compte qu'à cette époque-là, les hommes sortent tout juste d'un mode de vie nomade. C'était donc des chasseurs-cueilleurs qui, de plus en plus, commençaient à découvrir l'agriculture et à devenir des fermiers, et c'est d'ailleurs ce qu'on comprend avec ce fameux village de Darrington Walls qui est à quelques kilomètres de là, où un village néolithique a été découvert. On parle ensuite d'une des pierres les plus importantes du site, la pierre de talon, en anglais Hillstone, qui apparemment avait une partenaire et qui est alignée avec les solstices d'été. C'est-à-dire le jour le plus long de l'année, en général le 21 juin, le soleil se levait parfaitement aligné avec ces deux pierres et venait frapper en plein milieu du site, et c'est là où un des premiers mystères du site apparaît. Comment est-ce que des hommes qui sortent d'une vie nomade et qui commencent à se sédentariser ont choisi ce site spécifique qui, visiblement, est aligné avec les astres et avec les solstices? Comment est-ce que ça a été calculé? Et vous verrez que ce n'est que le début des complications.
Around about 2500 BC, so 4,500 years ago, the stone elements of the monument come in. And there are 3 main geologies we know now. These huge ones in front of us are a type of sandstone, very, very dense. Silcrete, and they would have been marine sediments under the sea. And that's what gives them a lot of their features. You see these holes, most of it would have been created by seaweed or animals burrowing into the rock.
So these rocks were underwater?
Yes, they were. Oh, millions of years ago,
of course. Yeah.
There's been a lot of work done on the geology recently, and these ones have been identified as coming about 20 miles further north, but they're huge and they're heavy. To get them here is a feat of engineering, never mind directing them. But the thing that makes Stonehenge so unique is its construction features. It's actually constructed like a piece of timber architecture. The uprights have got the equivalent of tenon joints. They've got sort of knobs on the top, and then the lintels have corresponding holes to make them sit on top of. You can see some of the.
Yeah, they're like Lego, like kind of Legos, yeah.
And then the lintels fit together. They're sort of toggled together. They would have been slightly graduated to take in the lie of the land, because although it looks flat, it's not absolutely flat. Because a lot of people say, well, why here? Yeah. So we think, and it's also to do with water supply. The River Avon is very close by, but we can't see it. The other really important geology are what we call the blue stones. So shall we go in and then we can see them a bit more carefully?
Avant de rentrer sur le site, voici la 3e et dernière partie de construction de Stonehenge qui date de moins 2600 à moins 2400 avant Jésus-Christ. Toutes les pierres bleues qui étaient au centre ont été remplacées par des pierres de sarcène qui pèsent entre 25 et 50 tonnes. Il y en avait environ 80. Il y a des millions d'années, ces pierres se trouvaient sous l'eau, c'est pour ça qu'on trouve des sédiments marins sur ces pierres, et elles viennent d'une carrière d'une trentaine de kilomètres, ont été transportées jusqu'ici grâce à la technique des rondins de bois qu'on attribue également aux bâtisseurs des morailles sur l'île de Pâques. Ces pierres tiennent entre elles sans aucun mortier, mais si on parle en termes techniques, c'est un assemblage de tenons mortais, c'est ce qu'on utilise en charpenterie notamment, et cette technique est utilisée à la fois pour les pierres qui sont debout à la verticale que les linteaux qui sont posés par-dessus. Évidemment, tout ça en prenant en considération que le terrain où on est n'est pas plat, donc ils ont dû incliner très légèrement les pierres au moment de la construction.
So we think this is the entrance of the outer circle. So the blue stones are these ones that are smaller, and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and in fact there are lots of different geologies, but they are diorites and volcanic tuffs. And we know they came from West Wales, which is over 200 miles to the west.
Okay, yeah.
It takes quite a long time to get there in a car today.
So what is the weight of those stones?
They're much lighter, so they're up to a ton though. They're still substantial.
Yeah, of course.
One of our problems is that Stonehenge has been about 50% excavated, but 50%, but not under modern conditions. There's a bit of a philosophical debate about whether we should excavate the rest of it.
Yeah, of course.
Because, I mean, even in the last 10 years, the discipline of archaeology has changed out of all recognition with digital technology and DNA coming in and
LiDAR scanner.
Exactly, yes. So it's amazing what we've learned even in the last 10 years. Bluestones were then in a circle and then they were in horseshoes as well, because the other amazing feature is this horseshoe shape of the giant trilithons. Now, a trilithon, you might know, is just 3 stones. Yeah. And that's the iconic symbol of Stonehenge. And can you see they're so much taller than the outer circle? Yes, so it would have made more sense to bring those in first.
Yeah, kind of.
So there are 5 of them. 1, 2, 3. This one's lost its partner, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
4. That one was re-erected in the 1960s.
Oh, so that's the one that was rebuilt, right?
Yes. We probably wouldn't do that today, but and then this one, believe it or not, that's its partner, and these are bits of its lintel.
Oh, okay.
But can you see these two? The lintels are quite blocky, they're quite square at the ends and everything, compared to this one. And that's because when that was on the ground, we're pretty sure that not even just in Victorian times, but through the decades, people would come and chip bits off and, you know, sit on them, and animals probably roamed through here and all the rest of it. So these are the pristine ones. And again, they're held up with the mortise and tenons. So, and that is one of the mysteries. You know, we can sort of imagine how they put the big ones up through leverage. If you dig a hole, put one in, you can lever them up. Getting the lintels on is still a bit of a mystery. Of course.
Because these weigh like around 20 tons, right?
Yeah, they're very heavy. We think, you know, a bit like the pyramids, they might have built up and dragged them up. We don't think they would have, even with a lot of people and animals, that they would have been able to pull them up because of the weight. And they go into the ground about another third.
Une fois rentré sur le site, on parle des fameuses pierres bleues. J'en ai parlé juste avant, c'était les pierres qui étaient au centre et qui ont été remplacées par les pierres de Sarcène, mais elles ont quand même été placées en cercle autour de ces pierres-là, mais également en forme de fer à cheval à l'intérieur. On apprend que les pierres viennent de l'ouest du pays de Galles, c'est-à-dire à plus de 320 km, et voici comment on suppose qu'ils les ont transportées, d'abord par la rivière et ensuite par la mer, évidemment en bateau. Heather nous explique aussi qu'une des techniques supposées pour lever ces énormes pierres, c'était d'abord de creuser un trou dans le sol, et grâce justement à la force humaine et également animale, ils ont pu lever les 2 pierres qui sont à la verticale. Mais la vraie problématique, c'est d'imaginer comment est-ce qu'ils ont pu mettre le linteau par-dessus, des pierres qui pèsent environ 20 tonnes, et surtout qu'on apprend après que ce site n'est pas totalement authentique. Il a été réédifié plusieurs fois au XXe siècle, notamment en 1900, mais en 1950 et 60, et voici des photos historiques qui montrent cette réédification, et on peut se rendre compte de quel type de technique et quel type de machine il a fallu pour remettre en place certaines pierres qui étaient tombées, mais également pour renforcer certaines pierres qui menaçaient justement de tomber, et on se rend compte que ça demande des machines et des efforts titanesques pour monter des pierres à des telles hauteurs, et c'est ce qui pose un grand mystère sur ce site, c'est de comprendre comment il y a environ 5000 ans, ils ont pu mettre des pierres de 20 tonnes à pratiquement 5 mètres de haut.
And then there's a third geology. It's a bit unfortunate because we can hardly see it, but there's a stone under here that's known as the altar stone.
The altar stone is there?
There's the sun coming out. Yes, and unfortunately it's got this one fallen on it and that one fallen on it. And then the lintel, and you see it's got the beginnings of the mortise holes, but it's also got one on the other side, as if they maybe started and then never finished it properly. If this one ever stood at all, we don't think it stood for very long, but it's all fallen on top of this stone we call the altar stone. It was excavated in the 1960s, so we know it does go down a bit. And the geologists always would say, it's like the bluestones, but it's different. And in the last couple of years, they kept saying things like, well, it's got exotic minerals. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, they don't think it's, they initially thought it was from a bed of sandstone north of Swansea. And they wondered if, when they were bringing the bluestones, they might have collected it en route. But last summer, the geologists discovered that the exotic minerals are only found in one place in the British Isles, and that's northern Scotland.
Yeah, I saw that.
You might have heard about that.
It's like 700 kilometers from here, right? Something like that.
Yeah. So there's lots of people now trying to work out how they might have brought it here, how long it might have taken. But it's obviously very exciting. My money was on France, actually, but it didn't.
Yeah? But why do you think they took a stone from like 700 kilometers from here? Why just don't take a stone that is over here?
Good question. It really helps you to understand that these people must have been travelling all over the British Isles, probably to France as well. It's closer. You know.
Yeah.
The level of communication and exchange, even with the Welsh bluestones. One of the professors working on all this, Mike Parker Pearson, he thinks that there was something special about the bluestones. They were probably brought for a reason. But there was another professor working on it, and he thought that they might have had healing properties.
Oh, okay.
They certainly feel lovely. And when you sit and they have an acoustic property as well. When you sit in the quarry and knock them together, they have a sort of ring to them. It's quite noisy with traffic this morning.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether you've noticed, there is definitely still an acoustic.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You can, you can actually hear it.
Even though it's open to the elements.
So when it was closed, should be a great acoustic, right?
Yes, yeah. And there have been some academics who've done some work on the acoustics, actually.
Wow.
On apprend donc que la pierre de l'autel, qui est la pierre centrale de cet édifice, est maintenant enfoncée dans le sol parce qu'un trilithon lui est littéralement tombé dessus. Et ce qui pour le coup est absolument fascinant, c'est qu'on a appris l'été dernier que cette pierre provient d'un seul endroit dans les îles britanniques, c'est au nord de l'Écosse. C'est-à-dire que cette pierre de 6 tonnes a parcouru plus de 700 km pour venir se retrouver précisément au milieu de cet édifice de Stonehenge, et on ne sait ni pourquoi ni comment. Eder nous explique aussi que les pierres bleues ont des propriétés un petit peu particulières, et notamment une propriété acoustique. Et d'ailleurs, vous pouvez voir ma réaction, mais pile au moment où elle me l'explique, j'ai littéralement entendu l'écho de ma voix frapper sur une des pierres d'en face et me revenir. Ça m'a choqué sur le moment, surtout que je connais d'autres monuments, notamment la Chichén Itzá, où il y a exactement des phénomènes comme ceux-là qui sont acoustiques.
C'est hallucinant.
Et justement, une des études qui a été faite, c'est de reproduire ce monument de Stonehenge en format plus petit et de tester l'acoustique. Et ce qu'on est ressorti, c'est que quand il y avait des personnes à l'intérieur de cet endroit, leur voix était amplifiée, mais qu'à l'extérieur, on n'entendait rien du tout.
So just quickly tell you then, we're not sure how long it was in use. And one of the other things that happened was, slightly after all this was in place, there was an earthwork called the Avenue built that runs down to the valley below us and up over the ridge and actually takes you the whole way to the River Avon. Okay. And that is known as the Avenue. Okay. And we think they might have come in on the River Avon and processed all the way up here as part of their ceremonies. So it's obviously in a ruinous condition today, which makes it difficult to sort of
imagine what it was.
Yeah. If we come out a little bit, it's worth it because you get an idea of the scale. You know, you can see how much taller that horseshoe is. So in the summer, as I say, the sun would have risen. So it comes out the side of the hailstone and would have gone through that back trilithon. It is quite dramatic. And then in the winter, it's more about the sun setting. And then I must just tell you about 4 other stones. Yeah. That's one of them. You see that small stone? Yeah. And there's one over there. There would have been one in that slight mound there, and there would have been one further over there where we've got a marker. Yeah. And they're known as the station stones. And they form a rectangle. And there's some thought that they might have helped with the setting out of the circle.
Oh, for the geometry, right?
Yeah. But as well as that, we're in the middle of a major lunar standstill.
Okay.
Have you heard about this?
No.
No, so, oh God, I can't even think what it is. Every 26 years, is it? You might remember better than me. I think it might be
19. I heard something about 19.
Yeah. So we've had some archaeoastronomers coming because those cremation burials I was telling you about, there's more of them over on that northeast side. They're trying to see whether they can get evidence for the moon hovering over that area and lining up with the station stones. So they think the station stones might be one of the earliest components of the site. Yeah. It's very hard to measure. The astronomers admit that themselves. Did rise along the line of the 2 far station stones, that one and the one over there. And then one of the magical things was that it cast moon shadows. You know, we get sun shadows all the time. Of course. But they were amazing because they were very long, and some of the lower trilithons were in shadow on the big trilithons. It was quite magical, actually.
Donc, pour résumer, Stonehenge est l'une des plus grandes structures mégalithiques d'Europe. Sa construction a commencé il y a 5000 ans, tout juste à la période où les hommes sortaient de leur période nomade. Elle a eu 3 étapes de construction étalées sur 800 ans. Il y a 3 types de pierres qui constituent cette structure. Les pierres de Sarcène qui viennent de environ 30 km, les pierres bleues qui viennent de plus de 300 km, et la pierre de l'Autel qui, elle, vient du nord de l'Écosse de plus de 700 km. En les additionnant, ça fait plus d'une centaine de pierres déplacées et plus d'un millier de tonnes qui ont traversé toute l'Angleterre. La raison pour laquelle ces pierres ont été prises à ces endroits spécifiques reste inconnue. Leurs moyens de transport restent encore incertains. L'ingéniosité, la force humaine et animale ont permis d'ériger les pierres à la verticale, mais la technique pour déposer et assembler les linteaux au-dessus reste encore inexpliquée. Toute la structure est légèrement inclinée pour épouser le sol qui n'est pas plat et est également alignée avec les solstices d'été et d'hiver. Le monument n'est pas à 100% authentique car il a été réédifié au XXe siècle plusieurs fois et les techniques et les machines utilisées étaient impressionnantes. La conception précise du monument lui permet d'avoir un effet acoustique quand on est à l'intérieur et d'amplifier les échos. On peut d'ailleurs retrouver cette propriété sur d'autres monuments à travers la planète. Une fois le monument terminé, ils ont fait un terrassement de 3 km pour rejoindre la rivière la plus proche et on apprend enfin que les 4 pierres de station forment un rectangle parfait autour du cercle principal de Stonehenge et elles projettent des ombres très spécifiques lorsque la lune est à l'horizon sur les trilithons, ce qui leur permettait de calculer un cycle de 19 ans où la lune se retrouve exactement au même endroit au même moment, cycle qui ne sera découvert que des milliers d'années plus tard par le grec Méton. Et tout ça dans un but qui reste inexpliqué.
Bon ben voilà les amis, j'espère en tout cas que cette vidéo sur Stonehenge vous aura plu, que vous avez appris des choses, même moi en venant ici grâce à la conservatrice on a appris des choses de fou. Le site est incroyable, si vous avez l'occasion de venir ici un jour, n'hésitez pas à prendre un guide pour qu'il vous explique tous les phénomènes archéologiques ici, parce que c'est vraiment dingue. Et j'espère en tout cas que la vidéo vous a plu, n'hésitez pas à vous abonner, à laisser un like si c'est pas encore fait. Merci à tous, c'était Anil et à très vite pour une nouvelle aventure.